James, you're not the beard, you're not the system, you're the problem.
Brian Damaris's infamous pregame rant just became even juicier. His harsh take jump-started the Clippers. LA would then leapfrog past Dallas in the standings as Harden and the Clips would become one of the best teams in the West. Fast forward to today, the Dallas Mavericks and the Los Angeles Clippers are slated to face off in the postseason for the third time in 5 years. However, Dallas looks vastly different now than they did in those previous playoff matchups. Sub out the younger versions of Kristaps Porzingis and Jalen Brunson for prime Kyrie Irving and a supporting cast infused with athleticism and youth. The Clippers wrecking Luka Doncic faces off with Mavs killer Kawhi Leonard yet again. A first-round matchup for the ages with serious potential long-term implications for whoever loses. Let's break down the matchup and analyze the theoretical strengths each team will look to flex over the other in what appears will be a long and grueling series between playoff rivals. The best place to start is with the Mavs offense against that Clippers defense. As everyone knows, LA's switch-heavy approach is at the forefront of concern. While it may be the least tiresome defensive tactic, it comes with its faults. The biggest one is allowing Luka Doncic to pick his matchup. During this year's season series, we've seen Doncic target James Harden most frequently, but also torment Daniel Tice and other Clippers once he gets the matchup he wants. The Mavericks then flatten out along the baseline, giving their MVP candidate ample room to attack. As a result, Luka's been extremely productive as a scorer due to LA's defensive switching. Averaging 34 points in the 3-game season series, Luka has been unguardable. In the first matchup, Doncic exploded for a ridiculous 17 of 21 shooting night en route to a Mavericks blowout win. However, there exists a method to Ty Lue's madness. Doncic, who can score when he wants anyway, has been forced by the Clippers to attack space predominantly as a scorer. For the most part this season, LA has looked to fill the gaps on Doncic's drives, shrink the floor a bit, but have made an effort to avoid doubling Luka outright. As a result, Doncic has averaged only 6.7 assists this year against the Clippers. That number is the fourth lowest average for Luka against all 29 opposing teams this season. The Clippers seem content with Doncic trying to beat them one-on-one in an attempt to limit the others around him from getting wide open looks. LA has effectively shrunk the floor on Doncic's deep drives to provide some help without overcommitting to arguably the league's best passer. Doncic has shot at least 21 times in all 3 games against the Clippers this season. The Mavs as a team have shot 41 threes per game in those 3 matchups. The one game they won, the team shot 45% from behind the arc. The 2 losses came in contests where Dallas shot sub 33% from deep. The Clippers' goal is to provide just enough help to Luka to prevent him from scoring in the high 40s or 50s, while also not allowing the others to get going on wide open 3-point looks in the half court. The Mavericks do have a few quick hitters though to exploit switching defenses like the Clippers. Like other teams, Dallas leverages ghost screens and slip screens to confuse the tandem executing the switch. With Luka's ability to steer the ship, Dallas likely gets the right look out of those planned points of attack. Expect to see the Mavs use Kyrie Irving as a screener frequently, along with Tim Hardaway Jr. to generate scoring opportunities out of these actions. Dante Exum will also likely be featured as a screener for his playmaking and shooting touch out of these actions as well. Despite the Clippers switching, this season the Clippers have shown more resistance to allowing Ivica Zubac to get caught out in space with Doncic. The Clippers have mostly used hard hedges and drop coverage to protect Zubac from being hunted by Luka. Doncic's skill set as a 3-level scorer still hurts these coverages as he either splits the hedge, turns the corner, or maximizes the open space with his pull-up jumper. Kyrie Irving's downhill dynamism takes advantage of Zubac in his drop coverage as well. Irving missed the final game of the season series, but in the first 2 games averaged 26.5 points and shot 19 of 41 from the field in those 2 games. As Irving's defender navigates the screen, Kyrie is able to comfortably work into open space in front of Zubac's deep drop. While these open looks are great shots for Dallas's stars, The Clippers' defensive bet again comes down to the analytics. A bunch of mid-range jump shots for the Mavs doesn't always equate to great offense, even if Kyrie and Luka are connecting at a solid clip. Maxi Kleber may be an important X factor for a game or two in this first round series. Playing Kleber at center against Zubac in deep drop coverage would open up the Mavs pick and pop game drastically. If Kleber can knock down a few open shots in short stretches, Dallas goes from a dangerous to unstoppable offense while Zubac is on the floor. Having Gafford and Lively size the series is important. Dallas can't afford to fully abandon their centers, and the offensive rim pressure and rim protection defensively they provide. But don't be surprised when Jason Kidd calls Maxi Kleber's number, just like he did back in the 2022 playoffs during Dallas's run to the Western Conference Finals. Clippers fans might shudder with flashbacks to Ivica Zubac getting torched in space by Dallas's number 77, but even to my surprise, the box score plus-minus suggests Zubac has helped the Clippers more than he's hurt them. Even in Dallas's 18-point win in their first matchup this season, Zubac's plus-minus was a surprising +1. In the two Clippers wins, Zoo combined to have a total +18 plus-minus. Averaging double-digit points and rebounds against Dallas, his role as a screener, rebounder, rim protector, and play finisher still provide enough positives to justify him logging 25-plus minutes a night, even when it seems like Luka's having his way offensively. The Clippers defense has one trump card in their deck that no other team in the league has. That card is named Kawhi Leonard. The two-time Finals MVP gave Doncic the business last time these two teams met in the postseason, willing the Clippers back to a huge series win with his two-way play. Arguably still one of the best screen navigators and defensive playmakers in the league, Kawhi has the knack of bothering Luka Doncic more than any other player I've ever seen. Kawhi won't guard Luka all series long and might not even match up with him for the first few games of the series. But when it's winning time, he will. As Doncic tires in the fourth quarter, not only will he have to overcome fatigue, he will also have to beat this generation's best perimeter defender. Last year, Leonard outplayed Kevin Durant significantly in the first game of round one, as the Clippers out-edged the Suns. When Kawhi turns it on for stretches, he still might be the best one-on-one defender in the association. Dallas will likely struggle once again with containing him on the other end of the floor. In their last two playoff meetings, Kawhi has gone unconscious, averaging 32.5 points over those 13 games, nearly 9 rebounds a night, and almost 5 assists as well, with elite efficiency. There's a real case to be made that he's the best player in the series. Even with Doncic's excellence, Kawhi has prevailed in the past meetings and might do so again this year. Dallas might have a newfound answer this year though for Kawhi Leonard. His name? PJ Washington. Washington will likely be the primary defender Jason Kidd employs on Kawhi. Washington's athleticism, length, and defensive capabilities make him the Mavs' best option. The concern though is that even against great defense, Leonard's three-level ability still might prevail. Washington and Leonard have yet to face off this season in any capacity. So Dallas's wildcard defender will have to learn quickly in an attempt to limit Kawhi this series. Gafford and Lively's length should help as well if Kawhi gets to the rim, but that signature mid-post and pull-up game that Kawhi possesses suggests that Washington likely has to live or die in isolation. The Clippers are one of the premier isolation teams in the entire NBA. Their collective big three is all capable of getting a bucket by simply beating their man one-on-one. We know how dangerous Kawhi Leonard is and will be. The biggest question is the production of James Harden. As one of his biggest believers myself, I can't deny his best days are behind us. His hamstring injury with the Brooklyn Nets has completely altered his career as a scorer. The player once averaging 36 plus points a night for an entire season has now lost a step. Harden was a walking paint touch for years, but now he's become more and more reliant on his outside shot. However, when Harden has fresh legs, he's still a serious scoring threat. Think back to Game 1 of the 76ers Boston Celtics series last postseason. The Beard exploded for a playoff career-high 45 points in the series opener after 9 days of rest. The next game, on just 1 day of rest, Harden scored just 12 points. Expect Harden to get his in Game 1 of the series, and in games with 2 days of rest as well. However, quicker turnarounds will test his hamstring, and that's where the Mavs have a huge advantage. Dallas has to make one of the best scorers in NBA history beat them one-on-one. Showing him extra bodies at the rim is unnecessary due to his slight decline in burst. Giving Los Angeles drive and kick threes is death to Dallas's defense. The Mavericks have to live with the results of Harden playing one-on-one at this point of his career, force him to finish over the initial point of attack defender at the rack. The Clippers' offensive plan of attack can be at times lethargic. That's where Paul George, Norm Powell, and Russell Westbrook come into play. Let's start with Paul George. PG-13 is great in isolation, but even more useful playing off the basketball for this team specifically. His ability to work off of screens, play off of the catch, and knock down open shots is essential if the Clippers want to win this series. While the Clippers don't win off of a ton of player movement typically, PG's off-ball activity and production will play a large part in the outcome of the series. Playoff P has a lot yet to prove as an impending free agent this offseason. Norm Powell's role as a three-point sniper has been one of the most underrated stories in the NBA this year. With the Harden acquisition, Powell has shifted from some of his on-ball responsibilities last year to primarily more off-ball duties this season with Los Angeles. In the first meeting between LA and Dallas this season, Norm Powell went scoreless in just 11 minutes and was a minus 35. The Mavericks won comfortably. The other two games though, well, Norm averaged 18 points a night and caught fire from deep, again eclipsing the 40% threshold this season on three-pointers. Powell has been one of the best high-volume three-point shooters in the NBA for the last half-decade. LA's X-factor this series is Norm Powell. If Dallas overcommits defensively and gives Powell space from deep, it's going to play right into Los Angeles' hands. The Mavs' defensive rotations are going to have to be at their best in order to prevent Norm from finding a rhythm early in this series. The Russell Westbrook matchup is perhaps the most complicated. At times this season, Luka Doncic has defended Russ to avoid the concerns of missing the occasional rotation and quote-unquote providing extra help. Dallas can't afford to do that in this series. Doncic has to guard somebody else, and the Mavericks have to treat Russ with respect, not as a shooter, but as a player. Sagging off of Russ with another perimeter player like Doncic isn't really advantageous for the Mavericks. That fact is evidenced by Russ shooting 16 of 25 on twos in the season series with the Mavs. However, gapping Russ with a center likely will be more effective. I expect at some point in the series for Jason Kidd to employ either Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford on Westbrook. Frequently this series, that can be a huge advantage. Hopefully for Dallas' sake, the presence of their rim protectors completely stalwarts Westbrook on his rim attacks like we've seen from other teams this year against Russ. It's okay to give Russ space and allow him to chuck up threes if he wants to. In the 3 games this year, Russ only shot 4 total threes and missed all of them. With one of Lively or Gafford on Russ, the other Mavs defenders will have a shot blocking center at the rim behind them ready to help out when the Clippers do attack the rim, while still effectively limiting Russ's actual production both as a downhill slasher and as an offensive rebounder. Within Ty Lue's predatory offense, their plan of attack will be to go at Luka Doncic. Doncic will probably match up initially with Terrence Mann, but similar to what the Mavs plan on doing with Tim Hardaway Jr. and Kyrie Irving, Mann will screen, slip, and force the Mavs into switching Doncic onto the ball handler, whether that be Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, or Paul George. Not only is Doncic a solid matchup to attack, despite his strong defensive analytics this season, but Ty Lue is a mastermind better than most. The goal with attacking Luka so frequently isn't just to score, it's to create a war of attrition. With the load Doncic bears for Dallas's offense, having to constantly exert himself on defense is going to cause fatigue. By fourth quarters, Luka will be running on fumes, and by the end of series, there might not even be a drop left in the tank. Luckily for Dallas, Doncic running on fumes is still better than 99% of other NBA players. He is that good. Kawhi Leonard, on the other hand, not necessarily a player you want to attack. Honestly, probably the scariest player for me in the NBA. Transition basketball will be essential for both teams. Both teams average roughly 20 transition possessions per game. The two, roughly, both score 1.15 points per possession on those transition opportunities. Likewise, both teams are equally prone to allowing transition chances. Los Angeles is exploited primarily due to their age and their half-court spacing. The Clippers constantly play with 4 and even sometimes all 5 players below the break. Long misses and turnovers then translate to easy buckets based on their floor spacing. For Dallas, Doncic and Kyrie don't necessarily equate to the best transition defensive duo the league has ever seen, as those two often gravitate to the top of the key. For me, I'm super excited for this series between Dallas and Los Angeles for a few different reasons. First of all, it's the third time in 5 years we've gotten to see them. My best friend is a diehard Los Angeles Clippers fan. I'm a diehard Dallas Mavericks fan. So because of that, we've got a little bit of extra fuel to the fire as well. It's a fun series. It's one that I honestly wished wasn't happening though, because the last 2 times the Clippers have gotten our number. Now this is a completely different team. The Mavericks are much better on paper now than they were back in 2021, as an example. There's no Boban Marjanovic in the starting lineup. Trey Burke is not going to be playing 15-20 minutes a night in this series. That is a complete difference here, and the advantage goes to Dallas there. But there was no James Harden on those Clippers teams. Remember Reggie Jackson, someone who Luka loved to exploit back then? He's no longer an option to attack either in this matchup. So the two teams have shifted. There have been a lot of changes, not only in terms of the coach of the Dallas Mavericks, but also the way that the Clippers play, their personnel as well. There has been a lot of shifting in this matchup between these two teams. And one thing that hasn't changed, I'm still afraid of Kawhi Leonard. What he did to Dallas in those 2 playoff series, think back to the poster dunk, think back to his lockdown defense on Luka Doncic in clutch moments. The way that he plays the game is unlike anyone else in today's league. He is the most reminiscent player of Michael Jordan, in my opinion, with what he's able to do with one hand on the basketball. He moves like Michael Jordan. He shoots like Michael Jordan. A lot of what Kawhi Leonard does looks like Michael Jordan. And he is a mid-range assassin. He gets to his spots, and once he gets there, you can't stop him. PJ Washington has been awesome for the Mavericks this season. I'm hoping that that continues since they've acquired him at the trade deadline. But do I trust PJ Washington fully to be a Kawhi Leonard stopper? Definitely not. Do I think there's going to be moments where he slows him down and maybe even gets the better of him in one-on-one situations? Yes. I think the big X factors in the series, I talked about Norm Powell. I think he's a huge X factor. I think James Harden, how many good games do you get from him in this series, especially if the series goes 6 or 7 games long? Can you expect Harden to give you 3 or 4 good performances at this point of his career with his injury history, with how the playoffs are officiated at this time of the year? I'm concerned about James Harden, even though I'm probably one of the biggest James Harden fans of all time. I've loved him as a player for basically his entire career. I'm just at this point concerned what he's going to bring for LA this time of season. So that's a big question. Paul George, does he kind of figure his playoff moments out? That's another big question for me, specifically looking at what he's been as a playoff performer. He's had some really high highs, especially thinking back to his time with Indiana, and he's had some really low lows. You think about hitting the side of the backboard against the Denver Nuggets. And something that gets brushed over in the previous matchups with Dallas, Paul George did not play that well in some of those series. Even with the Mavs being a younger team and a team that wasn't really equipped to make a super deep run in the playoffs at that point in time, Paul George struggled. So Dallas has a window of opportunity here to maybe say goodbye to the Clippers and tackle some of those demons from the past. And the Clippers, well, they have a chance here to continue to exert their dominance. Kawhi Leonard, again, a good argument you could make that he is the best player in this series. I myself would vote Luka Doncic for MVP. So I'm not sitting here saying he's for sure better than Luka Doncic, but what I'm saying is in a 7-game series, not only has he shown it in the past, but I think he's still capable of showing it, especially with what he did to Durant last season in the playoffs, and what I still think he's capable of. He had a 35-40 game stretch this year where he looked like arguably one of the best players in the world again, where his efficiency was off the charts. He was dominating teams left and right, and the Clippers were winning a ton of games as well. The Clippers have kind of cooled off the second half of the season a little bit, and the Mavericks have heated up. So it's a unique situation. The Mavericks have been playing better basketball as of late. The Clippers played much better earlier in the season. Both teams have some real playoff history and success. Kyrie Irving, thinking back to some of his finals runs with LeBron James, he's equipped for moments like this as well. So this is going to be a big testament here between Luka Doncic versus Kawhi Leonard. It's going to be a big matchup between Kyrie Irving versus James Harden and Paul George. The question for Dallas is, what kind of shooting do you get around Luka Doncic? In elimination games in the past, Tim Hardaway Jr. has struggled. And honestly, you could point to him as a key reason why Dallas never advanced past the Clippers to begin with. Do we get a better Tim Hardaway Jr. series? What does Dante Exum look like in a playoff setting? Derrick Jones Jr. I think the Mavericks are relying on a lot of players who really aren't playoff tested and definitely not playoff proven at this point as well. So even though the Clippers have had their fair share of struggles in the postseason, specifically Harden and Paul George, as well as a few others there, Russell Westbrook at times, they've had their own playoff woes. But Dallas, some of their players have never even really experienced a postseason before. And those are players that they're going to rely on. PJ Washington, another example. Daniel Gafford doesn't really know what playoff basketball is like. Derek Lively doesn't know what playoff basketball is like. So you've got experience and age versus maybe more talent and youth. It's a unique matchup. It's a fun matchup. I'm glad we're getting part 3. I'm glad we're getting the trilogy here. But I'm also scared because as a Mavs fan, I don't want to see Kawhi Leonard anymore. I really don't. You guys have to let me know down in the comment section below who you think is going to win. Comment either hashtag Mavs or hashtag Clippers. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. It took me a long time to produce and put together, but it was a lot of fun. This is the first playoff matchup that we officially know. I'm excited for the end results here as the playoffs start to get underway here within the next week or so. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. Subscribe if you did enjoy, leave a like as well, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.